is the Independent City Council Budget Committee meeting number 2. And we'll go ahead and do a roll call, starting with Mayor McCardle.
Yes. John McCardle, Mayor.
Okay.
So that was Patrick Bosler from the media services.
Show everybody how it's all.
Gloria Bunch, Finance.
Mason, please determine.
Gerald Fisher, Public Works Director.
Jennifer Carter, community member. Okay. George Shaw, community member.
Carolyn Morton, Township President.
Nancy Lodge, community member.
Tom Tikus, City Council. Nathan Christensen, City Committee Member.
Kathy Martin Willis, City Council.
Aaron Tyler, committee member. Okay.
And Nathan, you want to?
You're gonna do that again?
You have to. do
Okay,
it.
for the record, my wife is an hourly employee of the museum.
I do have a quick question. Who is taking notes today?
Amanda is online and she is taking notes.
Excellent. Thank you, Amanda.
Our secretary is taking it.
In a review of the agenda, do we have any additions or changes to tonight's agenda?
I think that for the good of the order, I believe we've already reviewed the capital improvement plan.
We have.
We can probably scratch that. We can take questions though.
Okay. So I would like, everybody should have been able to read the minutes on their email. If you haven't already, we can receive the brief draft, and we'd like to go ahead and entertain a motion for approval.
I move to approve.
Motion by Nancy Lodge,
Second.
second by Councilor Martin Willis. Discussion. Hearing, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And on to item number 5, open for public questions.
So now we'll open the meeting to a hearing and take public comments. We had no public comments or questions received online this Saturday.
And there's no one on the call.
Okay, and no one on the call.
Okay. Moving right along, review of questions submitted.
So I believe everybody has the handout of the question, the Q&A. Apparently we missed somebody, mine are in either somewhere. But hopefully some of these will answer some of those questions. And this beyond yours. Once we get through these, if you have other questions, please feel free. For the listening audience, we'll just kind of go through the questions and answers. The first question was on the city's full tax rate of 4.5897. Can that be reduced or changed? So the answer to that is the rate can be reduced without affecting the permanent rate in the following year. It cannot be increased. However, I would caution the committee that in so doing, there is a risk that we would likely need to make adjustments in governmental services. This would mean either a reduction in personnel and or in personnel hours and business hours. So question number 2. On the gas tax, is there a way that can be reduced? Is there any relief for our community? People are really struggling with this awful inflation and the taxes. And the answer, Independence does not charge an additional gas tax. The gas tax is levied by and received from the state. The gas tax we receive is restricted on how it can be expended, and a reduction would result in less road maintenance. Question number 3. On the museum, it looks like they are already having roof leaks and water between ground and wall at their new location. Can you tell me the grand total for money spent on this project today? cost of building, cost of all improvements, etc. Why would the roof condition not have been a negotiation point in the purchase? And the answer is currently, the amount spent is $858,500, which includes everything spent to opening. The Public Works Director and City Manager that negotiated this purchase are no longer employed or available to answer the question about the roof. Answering without them would just be speculation on our part.
Can I,
Yes.
make one point there? Is the 858,500, that's gross spent.
Today,
That does not include grants or the income we received from selling the old museum.
right, that is not the resource against it. This is just what we've spent.
Right.
Does this include the personnel hours that Public Works has put in to build? So how many hours did Public Works put into the museum?
I don't have that answer before my time.
Because I mean, I've seen two to four personnel down there for a year working on the museum, but we never counted those hours. towards
We
this
do,
project.
we haven't analyzed those hours and calculated against the cost of the museum now.
So that would be interesting to know because that really tells us how much we've been spending on the museum.
We could do that.
And if memory serves, we knew the room was a problem with what building. We knew they were gonna have to be refurbishments.
I didn't know that. I didn't read that anywhere, because there was contingencies where we had a building inspection done and the roof had to be repaired. I never read that.
Do we have an idea how much income there will be from selling the old building?
We already sold it.
Yes.
365.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
We got what we asked for.
right. Question number 4. On page 3.8, it is proposed, it says proposed SDC admin fees is $40,000, but was zero for 2019, 2020, and 2020, 2021. Is this new? The answer is in prior years, this was a transfer from the SDC funds. We transferred 5% of SDC receipts for administration. We are now directly charging the fee when SDCs are assessed. So when a builder comes in and when they're submitted their plans, they're assessed at SDC, and that's when we also collect the admin charge for that. Question 5. On page 3.30, contingency says proposed 321,726. The next column for approved is 786,382. Why would the number be different? So we kind of got this question a couple of times, and I just want to put out there that next year we'll eliminate that column so it isn't confusing for people. It is, those columns are formulas. They're the budget hasn't been approved by you all yet. So there's not an amount in the approved. What you see there is just the contingency amount for that fund, and it's just a formula. So it's confusing, and I apologize. We'll change that. Question number 6. The total debt says 38,711,638. Does this amount for all government loans, all Manat debt, including what is owed to water, bond, and refunding debt, and any other loan debt, is that number the total debt the city is responsible for? The answer. This is the total debt that the city is responsible for. It is all bonds and loans, including Minnet bonds. The amount that Minnet owes the water fund is for debt payments we have made on behalf of Minnet for their bonds. That amount is currently 4,700,000 or 7,754. This is shown in the financial statements as a loans receivable in the water fund. It is not an additional amount that the city owes. Question number 7. ARPA funds have been moved to a category called grants. Is that correct? How do we follow that money? How has that money been spent so far? What does this extra money improve? How does this extra money improve our budget? The answer is, it is in a fund that was created last year. The grants fund can be found starting on page 3.35. Each grant has its own resource, which is incoming. And for 2023, it was $1,140,000, an expenditure line. ARPA has 3 expenditure lines. Resident support was $150,000, business support $75,000, and infrastructure $1,300,000 on page 3.36. The amount in each of these expense lines, which we have referenced as buckets previously, can be moved around by council without causing any budget issues, as long as the total remains the same. There is also the $200,000 in personnel services for 2023. Question number 8 asked for a one-page summary. However, for ease of going through each one, we broke them out and are answering each one. So A question is total amount of money needed to run the City of Independence this coming year. The total proposed budget appropriation is $29,588,567. This includes contingencies in the amount of $8,106,632. Total amount of revenue this year. The estimated revenue is $17,735,483, in addition to the beginning fund balances of $12,806,917. Next is total amount of needed surplus money needed this year. The answer is the budget is balanced. There is no budget expenditure beyond available resources. So there's no need of surplus because we haven't budgeted beyond what is available. Next one is total amount of debt and the total amount of debt to be repaid this year. On page 4.18 shows the city's debt in its entirety. The debt balance at 6/30/2022 will be $38,711,638. Total principal and interest payments in fiscal year 2023 will be $2,550,065. Next is how much of one-time monies was used to hire new staff or pay for new programs. One-time monies were used to hire the grants coordinator and funds half of the communications manager. Half of the grants accountant also budgeted started this last year, fiscal year, but remains unfilled. Next is how many new positions will be added in this new fiscal year and in the past 6 months of the previous year. 1 new position for 2023. 3 new positions were added for fiscal year 2022, and 2 of those were hired in the last 6 months, with 1 position still vacant as referenced in the message on page 2.3. Question 9. Why is there no additional spending on the sports park? Why was money spent from this year's budget to cover last year's study of the sports park? What fund did the rest of the study amount come from? On page 3.41, the feasibility study was budgeted for fiscal year 2022. However, we put in $15,000 in fiscal year 2023, as we do not anticipate completion by June 30. Also, the contract was not to exceed $15,000, which was over the original budget of $40,000. Lastly, without the completion of the study, there is no way to budget additional funds because we have no concept of what the monies would be used for. Next question, number 10. It looks like economic and community development time is being spent on issues that should be covered by communications manager, grants manager, or by private enterprise, IndyHub. Why is not more time spent on issues that have a measurable return on investment? The answer, this, I believe, page reference is 2.16 and 2.17. The staff frequently work with other staff to leverage their specialties in support of projects. This work, as well as partnerships with and collaborations with outside organizations, are used to expand the scope and impact of projects beyond what staff would otherwise be able to accomplish by themselves. Some projects may not have impacts that are immediately measurable, but overall key indicators such as number of businesses, job creation, and total payroll consistently outperform other cities of comparable size in our region. Question number 11. Facilities Maintenance Department is new on fiscal year 2023. What is the cost for this? How many new city workers will this mean? What was the cost of hiring out for this service? The answer, the Facilities Maintenance Department shown on page 3.12 combines janitorial and building maintenance. There are 1.2 full-time equivalent janitorial and about 1 half-time building maintenance positions. The estimated personnel services cost is $133,000 for fiscal year 2023. There is no change in materials and services costs, which were allocated to general fund departments and the utility funds in prior years. Prior to March 2020, janitorial services were outsourced at a cost of $39,500 with an expected 40% increase and unavailable during COVID. Building maintenance position, 1 half-time, was budgeted in the police department and cost approximately $59,500 annually. So the total cost for contract cost would be $164,200, and in-house is $183,900, which is just short of $20,000 more compared to contract.
Lori, one of my questions was, who runs the facility maintenance department?
The facility maintenance department is being managed by Amanda. Question 12. What things are funded by the other operating funds? What are its sources of revenue? The page reference is 3.1, second paragraph. As noted, other operating funds refer to the water fund, sewer fund. It also includes storm drain fund and the transportation fund. Revenues for those funds are user fees and state gas tax. Question 13. Is there any amount of money that Minnet has borrowed that the city has determined to be uncollectible or written off? If so, how much? So the auditors have required us to show an allowance for bad debt equivalent to the loan receivable, which is on our financial statements from Minnet. The current balance is $4,007,754. And it is the staff's belief that Minnet will eventually pay that off. However, because the auditors, there's no date certain when they'll start paying off and it will be fully paid off. we have to show it as an allowance for bad debt.
So you say that's the required amount, what is the actual amount?
Pardon me?
Is there a difference in what the auditors require you to put than what the actual debt is?
It is, it's the same. It's that $4 million number.
What's the money owed to the water?
Yes.
Take that amount.
With interest as of June 30, 2022.
Right. Yes, there'll be an additional interest accrued in June 30, 2022. Question 14. What is the GO refunding bonds? Answer: the general obligation GO refunding bonds were authorized by the voters in 2013. They refunded or refinanced 7 separate loans and bond issues. GO bonds are paid with property taxes, and it's a levy separate from our permanent rate. Question 15. How much of the city staff are working remotely? What percentage of their time is spent working remotely? Which departments still have staff working anytime remotely? The answer is some city staff occasionally worked remotely even before the pandemic, and some continue to work remotely today, although nobody is working fully remote. Currently, some managers spend time remote working, and our grant coordinator is mostly remote. Our downtown manager and economic development departments spend a fair amount of time out of the office as well, but this is a mix of working from home and off-site meetings within the community and region.
Is there any budget impact to working remotely versus in the office?
Is there what?
Any budget impact to working remotely versus working in the office?
No, I know,
Negligible?
yeah,
Is there?
it is. Yeah,
Small IT costs.
is there?
What kind of cost?
IT costs.
So those were initially outputted at the beginning of COVID, correct?
Yes.
So ongoing is just subscriptions or like a Verizon bill or something. Okay. Question 16. How many different people were paid the salary that makes up $274,000 of economic development and the salary that makes up $201,000 of community development? Economic development is the economic development director and the community engagement manager. Community development is the planning manager and 1/2 of the code and permits services position.
So is that 2 people or 2.5 people?
One,
1.5, yeah.
it's 2 full-time people, but the code person is split between building and planning. Time is split.
So between 1.5 people, they make 470.
No,
No.
that was only one of the answers. The 201,000 is 1.5 people.
Okay,
The other amount is 2 people.
okay, thank you.
Question 17. On page 2.21,
I'm sorry, one more question on that.
Sure.
Are they 2 different people?
In community development is the planning manager, and it's 1/2 of the code and permit specialist person. It's one position that is split between community development and building inspection.
Okay.
It's one,
And the other one is 2 different people.
yes. And the, in economic development, it is 2 full-time people.
Thank you.
17, on page 2.21, why did money from bonds and other debt end? The answer is there are no plans to draw on the DEQ loan in fiscal year 2023, and that is the last loan that we have open. That's still drawing against, but no plans to draw against that this year, this next year.
Is there a balance on that DEQ loan?
There is, and you can find that on that debt page.
Okay, so that's included in the whole.
Yes, yes. Question 18. what is the total cost to pay administration this fiscal year? And the answer is 1,036,767
Gloria,
is the budget.
does that include benefits, PERS, all of that? I mean, that's not just the check we hand out.
Correct.
Oh,
Question 19. On page 2.24, I am unclear on the budget 2022 and 2023 numbers. Proposed in one number is one number, then the approved is another. So this goes back to the earlier question, and that approved column has not been populated yet. So it's just a formula.
Can I go back to question 18 real fast?
Which one?
18.
Sure.
How many people are considered administration in the city?
That's a good question. I would have to look it up. There is the city manager, the finance director. There is the accounting manager. The accountant 2 / court clerk.
Well,
Yeah,
Gloria,
utility
with the-
billing is,
the personnel allocation as a number, how many
yes.
FTEs, would that be the answer?
Yeah.
Would that be the answer?
Okay.
56.80?
No, that's total people.
What?
That 56 is total employees.
Is that what her question was?
It's just-
She wants to know strictly administrative.
Give me 1 second.
I don't know what administrative is now.
Wouldn't include our police officers.
Huh?
Because really, that's kind of a small number. If we look back at that other question of economic and community development, that's
For,
almost
Economic
45%.
need involved there, or has their benefits too.
Or on page 2.2.2, it says there's 7.2 FTE. I'm not sure which.
that was for last year, 2021. So 2022 is 825 and same for 2023. is 825. Yeah,
I have one question. I'm just gonna add on it.
sure.
I'm not really familiar with PERS and how that all works, but how are we looking for if people start to retire or, I mean, we're not a huge city, so we don't have anyone coming up right now that's going to retire, because we'll have to replace them and pay PERS, or is there a percentage of PERS? We got work.
PERS, we are assessed a certain PERS rate. It's based on experience rating and the pooling and unfunded liability. It's very complicated. It gets really deep. Incoming, so there's different rates. So if somebody is retiring from that was tier 1, tier 2, that was employed as a person, or in PERS prior to 1999, then they're either tier 1, tier 2, and those retiring would cost us a little less if the incoming person that replaces them is considered officer.
Okay. So do we actually pay when a city employee retires? Like, does the city actually pay?
We pay every month, with every payroll we pay.
Throughout their career, every month you pay some PERS.
Yes.
Okay, so there's not ever going to be where a bunch of people retire and then we're like,
Yeah,
okay,
right.
thank you.
Over here, you don't.
We good? I believe we're on to question 19. On page 2.24, I am unclear on the budget 2022-23 numbers posed. Oh, shoot, we did that one. Next. Question 20. Has the budget been updated to reflect the new city manager's wages? And the answer is we estimated on the high side for the new city manager, and the estimate will be close to the actual. 21. I'm having trouble calculating the increase in FTEs. Is 4.25 correct for the 2022-23 budget cycle? The answer is the proposed budget increase in FTEs, full-time equivalents, is 1. And that's a utility worker.
Can you explain to me what, on page 2.3, there's a little box and it shows, you know, we're adding 1 FTE, 0.5 FTE, and so how is that? I guess that's what confused me.
2.5.
Yeah, 2.3.
Okay, I can see what you did.
Yeah.
But it's explainable. I believe. Work utility worker, that is a new position. The next one, public works seasonal worker, we have had those in the past, so it really is a new position. We employ them for summer work only. 2 of them this year, or 3 months each is a half, 1 half time. You know what I'm saying? Full-time equivalent.
So I'm on that one. Do we have somebody in 22? We did have somebody left. Okay, so we're just okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Finance accountant 2, that's, I believe, the one that we've been trying to hire and haven't been unable to fill with ARPA funds. Code enforcement planning and permit tech, that position previously lived in the police department as our code services. I'm throwing the wrong terms around now. As our code enforcement person, Sue Albee, and when she retired, the position moved. So it's not a new position. We just moved it over to
Yeah.
planning and building. And communication coordinator, that halftime position, that was actually in last year's budget. So it's not new this year. We added them up.
Thank you.
Last question. I'm concerned about the lack of backup personnel in the IT department. While I believe we should wait until the new city manager is on board, I believe this is something we need to look at. If we do eventually go forward with this, what would this look like and where would the funding likely come from? And salary and benefits for entry level would likely be about $75,000. There is no available general revenue source for funding. So we would have to really take a look.
Shuffle.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Jason, did you write that?
That you're.
I actually wrote it and I just, I don't necessarily mean we need to change the budget or anything like that, but I think it is something we have to look at because you know, after a scary presentation that I'm sure he did on purpose, it just feels like we don't have any.
Oh, did he do a scary?
Oh, it was really scary.
Oh, yeah. The Russians are coming, the Russians are coming.
Yeah, something like that.
Did you put it on YouTube?
It was not city council. Yeah. Well, I just feel it's an important, I mean, IT's in everything and it, you know, basically runs our city and we have one little weak point there that I'd be nice to talk about some redundancy in that, you know, something, a better backup than maybe our chief of police. Yes. For some of that. We might actually need you, chief, for you know, for police stuff. Right.
Code enforcement.
I kind of a follow-up question about that, actually. So last year, the proposed, or excuse me, the adopted budget was for $115,000 just for salary. And then this year, the proposed is only 66.
There is, we're allocating a portion of his salary and benefits into the utility funds where he also provides services.
Gotcha.
Money we're spending. Yes, right.
I still don't understand how that's transparent though, because then we got to search in multiple locations to try to find out what anybody's going to pay. Right.
There's a salary schedule.
But you don't, but there's a schedule, but you don't, I don't know what schedule you happen to land on. I mean, because I don't know how many years you've been here and what tier you're at. So that doesn't really help me.
I can see your point. We thought it was more transparent because it shows where his work is actually being done and what funds are paying for his work, or before you couldn't tell that. So we kind of went one direction.
I guess
We'll work on
for
it
me,
this
if
year.
it's just coming from the general fund, we know exactly how much that person's being paid, and it's crystal clear. Where instead we're guessing how much money they're gonna be taking from each of these other funds to cover how much they're getting. So for me, I don't know why we would bother to separate it, even though I understand. They do this work in this department, but you're guessing how much work they do in this department, where to show transparency. This is how much they're being paid, this is the total, there's no guesswork. I don't know what 15% of what is in here. Is 15% of the sewer budget, or is it 15% of their salary? And then where do I go to look for it? Because I have no idea how long a person's been here. So for me, it's not more transparent.
Yes, okay, so we will work on that to.
We have another
make it more
draft that we
clear.
already considered, or that we're already considering from other people's, budgets that we like.
I know this is gonna sound really simplistic, but maybe there's a way to color code it throughout, so you can just kind of follow the money trail based on color. Or something, or if there's some way, I mean, I kind of feel the same way. I'm wholeheartedly behind identifying where the money is actually being used. Because I think that makes a lot more sense, but it is still kind of difficult to follow the money trail, but. Better than last year.
We've seen vast improvements
Yeah.
over the years.
Yeah.
Oh, much.
Thank
Good,
you.
good input, and we'll definitely.
And it might just be a supplement. That outlines that for quick and easy run.
But it also doesn't show, like, when I asked the question, where is our ARPA money being spent? I mean, you showed me where we divided it into our 3 buckets. But you didn't show me how those buckets were spent. Because they haven't been spent yet. I mean, they have been spent. So, I mean, they're in our budget, but we've already spent them. Because we spent, what, 50,000 on Christmas lights. So I think that would be, right? We spent 41,000 on,
Including the holiday market.
right? So, I mean, if we're to be transparent with our ARPA funding and how we're spending it, I think instead of dividing it into 3 bucket categories, we should actually be transparent to where the city decided to spend that money.
And we could do that on ARPA specifically when we talk ARPA, and we did at one point to council already, right? We had that conversation and showed what we plan to spend, what we got spent,
Yeah, well, what we planned, but
right?
we haven't really. It's
Right,
gone to
well,
where
there
it
will be
actually
more,
was spent.
right, there will be more of those conversations going forward.
I-
But you are right, much of it is not yet spent or encumbered, really. I mean, it's kind of encumbered. We put it in that infrastructure account, that bucket, right? But we haven't gotten a loan that required us to really encumber it yet. It's just there, it's kind of a placeholder.
I think that's great. I just think as city council, and just members of the city, if we're going to be spending this money, we need to document exactly how it's being spent, especially if we're planning on getting equal amounts of money in August. Just to show we're good stewards.
And
of this
can,
money.
excuse me, go ahead.
No, I'm not.
Can we not include that in quarterly reports for
That is
you
what
to
I
the
was just
council?
gonna suggest, yeah, I could do that, I could, provide that, in the quarterly reports that I do to the council. And, just show exactly what's been spent and where.
That'd be great.
I think it's, we can't anticipate what the community's appetite is gonna be for this kind of data. It's an awful lot of data. I think maybe if we could get in the habit of maybe doing, something off the webpage that says, here's where our ARPA dollars are going. Very simple depiction of where those monies are going, so they can see the benefits to the community. And maybe we could do that with other pots of money as well, maybe on, maybe Minette, maybe some other areas where people certainly have an interest level. But I don't think, no offense, Gerald, but I don't think people are gonna get into the sewer details. I mean, it's important.
Counselor Gore, those are my kind of numbers.
Maybe, yeah, maybe, but.
Not.
No, let's not use the word appetite, sewer in the same.
But if we could just get into the habit of creating one pagers or just a blurb, here's what's going on with this particular fund and give people kind of an incremental sense of what's going on.
And do reports need to go back to the government on how the ARPA funding is being spent? Those could be posted online too.
Yeah.
It's,
Or they use
for
it
us,
mostly.
it's just annual. And we did our report, the end of last month.
And yeah, they wouldn't be probably, we want to
Right.
Yeah.
produce document. Well,
But if
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
wanted to drill down specifically, they could get a copy of that if they needed to.
It wouldn't be very revealing. What you send to the.
It would look impressive though.
I'm trying to give you something that would be more detailed.
Yeah.
So I'll commit to a June report that goes on the website, because I've already been done with that
Okay.
from our ARPA conversation that we already had. Not much has changed since then.
And the quarterly reports should serve that
Yeah,
purpose.
we can update the quarterly reports that, because we do, like you said, we've got it all on a spreadsheet, and we've got it all there, everything that's been spent.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was gonna make a comment also back to the, where people are slotted in as far as what fund pays their salary. I've been through a number of city budgets and I've seen it done both ways, where it's the whole thing appears under one category and one fund, when monies are being transferred in, transferred out, and everything else. And the way that it's being done now, where you show part of Jason's work is charged here and part of it's charged there, I find that more understandable, because then there's not that transfer of funds, that this is coming from here to pay part of his expense. It's very clear. And like I said, I've seen it both ways, and I find it much more clear when it is by department like that.
Right, yeah, and what our goal is to be more, decrease those transfers, definitely, because I know that those have always kind of been a mystery for.
Yes, they
council.
have.
And be more, do the direct charging of personnel and other services right into those funds, the operating funds they use.
And I will admit, I have more experience at looking at this kind of thing than the average reader does, but just knowing the different levels of confusion I've gone through on various budgets, including, as you mentioned, the transfer of funds, I appreciate the clarity of this one.
The problem is, if you're in that transition year when you're switching, then it's really hard to tell what's going on.
It is.
Next year it'll be easier, and after that it'll be easier.
Well, through this process, especially with you all, I've gotten a better idea of what you're looking for and how I can improve this to make it more understandable for you. And that's.
And maybe in
part
the
of
future,
process.
it's, sorry, Jason, I'm using you as an example. It would be here is his position. And then the funds that contribute to this position are ABC.
Yes.
Because that's where he spends most of his time working.
And how much?
Can we just add a column to this page that has their salary on it?
We did have that. We took it out. Just to make it,
It was
because it
a
was,
mess. It was very confusing. and
Yeah.
messy. I didn't, I wanted a PDF that was, well, I shouldn't say it was so big, I couldn't put it in the PDF. It was gonna be multiple pages. So I shrunk down, put all the general fund in one, took all the dollars out and made it clear what percentage was going where in a one page, readable document for you all.
Is that because there's multiple tiers in some of these categories?
No, it's because the spreadsheet that we were gonna send out, well, I shouldn't say that. The initial proposal was to send out an Excel document to everyone, and I was like, we can't send out an Excel document. Not everyone's gonna have Excel, right? We gotta get this into a PDF. And so then trying to put it into a PDF, the print was going to be so small because there are other funds, but they're all general fund funds that you're not seeing on that list. And everyone was broken out into all of the different general fund funds as well, but that really didn't matter to what I thought you were asking. So we shrunk everything into one general fund fund. And that eliminated about 7 columns this way, so that it shrunk it down, and then we got rid of the dollar amounts so that we had what was I considered a presentable document. But the other one's available if you want it. I mean, I can certainly.
And I think that even instead of putting a figure on it for future, you might just use percentages. The percentage of contribution by
That's what we-
particular funds to.
That's what we did, right?
So might this be a post budget committee conversation with they even reach out to the members to ask for additional suggestions of, because,
Yeah.
I know we still have other things that we have to do, and that would allow, folks to be able to be thoughtful in the coming months. That might be a good way to do that.
Good suggestion.
Okay,
Before we continue, Amanda, I need to point out that Councilor Roden is present.
Okay, I'll get her on the list. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for the next item, do you want to go through departmental summaries, or would you like to do questions to each of the departments? You've all had a chance to read the summaries, correct? And the narratives, and so there's. You do?
I read as well.
Right.
I'll do that.
So who would like to start?
Well, then, here we go. Is it possible to go in order of ours?
Let's see, where are we?
Are you just gonna read what we've already read?
We're not.
No,
Oh, you have something in addition. You have a presentation.
but we do, just kind of do a high level summary of those. Not read the narratives, but just kind of about the department and what kind of projects they're doing, working on.
Started last year, this is the way we did it, and I found it very helpful.
Go ahead.
So what stage are we starting on?
2.6.
2.6. So for the administration, normally our city manager would do this. We worked together, Bob and I and the rest of the executive team kind of worked on the administration summary. And really what we are working on, the big things for this last year was getting a communications manager. I think that was what kind of the top priority for the council. This next year, so I think one of the areas that we'll really concentrate on this next year is helping to just decrease the strain on the general fund. Strain of the general fund on the utility funds. So we need to think about and have conversations about how we're going to find support for government, for just general government services. That's the administration, for IT, or finance, that's other than working in the utility funds. It's just those general services, police department, library, all of those services are considered general services. And there is not enough general revenue to support those services. So that's really the conversation that we need to have in over the next 2 years in order to balance those.
Quite honestly, when we got to this page, I said, we're gonna try to get a city manager here. So that's gonna be the goal. And I said, next department, and we moved on.
Gold.
Yes.
When does she start?
The 27th of June.
So moving on to finance, we've had the goal of preparing the popular annual financial report. And we did submit that. We haven't received back the results. We should be receiving those back soon, along with our annual financial report. This next year, we're going to be working on doing the distinguished budget and submitting that to the the Government Finance Officers Association for that award program. Yeah, if in receiving all three of those awards, it's called a trifecta. And the Triple Crown is what the GFOA calls it. And we're really looking forward to going through that process. And we've already are working on getting that formatted and ready to go. So that's to come. Your name?
My next, that's easy. All right, so basically the IT department got hit really heavy during the pandemic. So obviously there was a lot of scrambling to get everybody remote, a lot of changes. And basically the cost that we paid there was kind of pushing some maintenance down the road. So this next year's budget is really focused on just getting caught up on all that. One of the other items is there was some cuts to my budget that were a little arbitrary. And so we kind of looked at it and where we need to put money back in. One of those was training, for instance. There's a certification that I had hoped to get, but because of the cuts, I couldn't afford the certification. So we just kind of have to delay it. Other than that, there's not a bunch of like really big projects planned this year. Again, wanting to make time to get caught up on that maintenance. We will be doing access control, which you guys are aware of, we're already in the process of. That's all the Prox card readers that you see around the building. That system is original to the building. If it dies, then we're all stuck using keys or behind locked doors. We'll also be updating all of the computers in the police department cars. And then I'll be working closely with Gerald to really try and modernize public works. They're still largely paper-based and we're going to get rid of them and try and find some efficiencies there. Other than that, there's two things that are probably most notable in the budget. You'll notice that there's no longer contract services IS listed. I just kind of felt that didn't quite fit the description of what was in that fund. So it's been renamed software subscriptions. So that's how much we pay every year to have all the software that we use. The other thing of note is that software subscription line, we see an increase of about $25,000 this year. That's from normal increases that are annual on some software. We added some new positions, so that also increases the cost of per user licensing. And that's pretty much it, right?
Do you have a timeline for the offspring?
Oh, man. So
So they can use the
the
net.
4 Osprey did show up briefly this year, a few of them. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like anyone decided to take up permanent residence.
Oh.
In paying attention to the live chat on there, there's some people that are really into Osprey watching. And I saw that one of them mentioned nest maintenance. Now, obviously not, I'm not a.
Is that
rapper
an
expert.
IT job?
Well, I go up to that quite a few times. So I reached out to Pacific Power that actually staffs Osprey experts and have basically asked them for help. You know, is there something that we should do to the nest to help, or do you just don't touch, leave alone? And basically we'll follow the recommendations. So if we end up having to go to the nest again, then obviously I'll take that opportunity to add audio.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Somebody's right next to see who's next.
All right, that's me. I just recently took over facilities maintenance. This is a brand new department for me. I'm super excited about my staff. And we're going to work on doing a lot of stuff in-house versus contracting out, and our contract managing and monitoring, along with our central services for janitorial and building maintenance, to make sure we can take some of the load maybe off public works and be able to do some of the maintenance and take care of all of the facilities ourselves. So yeah, brand new department, but we've been doing it this way for a little while. So
What was the decision made to bring it in-house versus the contract services you had previously?
So the beginning of that decision was COVID. We couldn't get any extra help from our janitorial staff, and our janitorial staff was really not performing well. So that was what started it all. And we started it in the police department with 2 part-time people. And that's how we ran janitorial for the whole city hall here. And then we expanded and picked up public works and the library. And it was working, but not great because we had 2 part-time people and our facilities person at the police department was overseeing them. So we ended up with a full-time person who has a vast experience in janitorial and has come in and made a huge difference. I don't know if you all have noticed the difference in our building, but as
Noticed it
people
at the
that,
library.
as people that work here, it's night and day. And really, I didn't scrutinize heavily that cost analysis that was done, but we are doing a lot of things ourselves now that we used to pay other people to do. So that it was really hard to give you clean numbers on that.
So this full-time person that's doing maintenance is a city employee.
Yes.
Okay.
Her name is Karen. She resides on the 3rd floor and she had,
Not our Karen.
no, not our Karen. It's different. And it's spelled with an E instead of an I, it's K-A-R-E-N. And she did have a 0.2 person also that she kind of oversees, but that person just gave us notice. So we are gonna just have Karen. And she's doing all of the buildings, this building, the public works building and the library. So
Wonderful.
And museum.
Yeah.
And a museum?
we're gonna probably have to pick up that 0.2 person.
I
again,
gotta say,
but
it's currently,
It's 10 hours a week. It's hard to, I mean, it's a really hard position to staff. So the extra one, the Karen one is working out tremendously because, but again, I was a little nervous because one person means if one person gets sick, then you don't have anyone. One person gets, injured, then you don't have anyone. So,
So the city provide all the equipment and the supplies and everything?
yeah, we had actually picked all that up before this when I had John, our maintenance guy was doing it.
Okay,
Like doing the serious work on carpets and floors, and we had picked up all that equipment already.
Okay.
So, yeah, we have all that in-house now.
great.
okay.
The police department, that's me.
That's
Yes. So last year, our goal was really focused on training, new instructors in certain disciplines to do more training in-house. And since then, we've lost a couple officers that left our agency, and so we are short currently. I'll say 3, although we have hired 1 who's in field training right now, we're still short 2 additional full-time officers. Which is really taxing on the department. So our goal this next year is to find 2 additional police officers to hire, good applicants and get them trained up. Looking at this, it's about 15 weeks in field training and 16 weeks in the police academy. So even if they're hiring someone today, they're not going to know until next year. So it's a kind of a goal. It's going to take us a little while until the beginning of next year. And once that happens, it'll really lessen a lot of strain on other people in the department. We're really sergeants are covering patrol, detectives are covering patrol. So that's a big goal. The other one Jason already touched on, you'll see in the budget, was replacing all the NVTs or mobile data terminals that we have in our police cars. They're end of life, so we're at a point where we have to do that. And then
That sounds expensive.
it's not cheap, but it's not expensive as you may think. Yeah. Our overall budget's less than it was last year. So we kind of moved some things around. I think we're doing fairly well. And the other thing is we're implementing, we're working more towards making our support program for our officers more robust. So adding a mental health person to come in and check with our detectives twice a year. That works sex offense cases or child abuse cases. They could use a little extra help, and that's something that we were able to make happen, I think, starting July 1. And then continuing our officer wellness program as far as like heart health and using more of our Cortico app to give information on workouts and healthy eating and things like that, because everybody knows police officers do not usually last as long as a normal citizen. So we're trying to do what we can to mitigate that.
Are we still losing police officers to larger cities, or who basically we train them and then they go on?
The ones we lost, no, we're not because of that. We are having a hard time hiring because there are a lot of other agencies that are bigger and honestly can pay more. Oregon State Police, you've probably seen them, they're hiring a ton of people. And they've got a lot more money in their pockets. So we did have one potential applicant that made it through background and we're about ready to go with, and Oregon State Police came at the same time. And so I think that's working out. I'm not certain, but
if you want to be a police officer in the state of Oregon right now, everybody is hiring, everybody's short. It's just nobody wants to be a police officer, and those that do are not doing real well in testing. So it's hard to find good quality.
Are we still working with the schools at all with the school resource?
We are, we still have 1.5 school resource officers, so Officer Barlow is still in Central, typically in Central High School most of the time. Although he does stuff in Ash Creek and Independence Elementary and Monmouth Elementary as well, and Talmadge. And then Officer Fleming is halftime SRO, halftime detective, and he primarily spends his time at Talmadge.
Talmadge. So Robert, looking towards the future in vehicle replacements, are you starting to look at electric cars? I kind of heard a rumor that Mama bought a Tesla.
That rumor's true. I don't believe they've received it yet. And you know, I've looked into that a little bit, and there were some agencies back east that actually went to Teslas and they scrapped them. They did not work well for them. The main issue was the size of the, I'll say prisoner compartment, right, or back seat to be able to put somebody in. We ran into a similar problem with the Chargers. It was just really hard to get anybody who wasn't like your average size, anybody who was a little bit bigger, to try to fit them in there. And there were times when we actually had to call.
How did you do it?
There were times when we had to call another officer with a bigger car to come and take a transport to jail because we couldn't do it. So that poses problems when you're working graveyard and you're the only officer and you have a small car. If you can't take somebody to the jail or secure somebody, it doesn't work. So the other issue with the agencies on Teslas was just being able to the charge time. I mean, you've got to come off the shift and charge. You can't go right into the next shift. So probably hybrid options.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily pushing Tesla. I just heard that Mama bought one. I thought that was a little strange because I think it's got a small capacity backseat too. So I thought
It does, and the aftermarket police parts or industry, I guess, has not done stuff for Teslas yet. So everything's pretty much a one-off, and I think that's why they're like, what, 1.5 years into this and still don't have it.
I don't think their intent is to put it on patrol either.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna find another purpose for it in their fleet.
Like code enforcement or
Yes,
something like
Or
that.
detective or.
Detective, yeah.
So I appreciate Counselor Carr's question because I had something along a similar vein, and that is how are we with fleet replacement, period? I mean, because last time, as I recall, we got really lucky with one that was, I don't know, some sort of a demo model, and we got a great deal on.
Yeah, we actually, I believe our vehicle, we typically get one vehicle a year. And I believe our vehicle for is it this year?
We don't have one this year, but we're getting next.
We're getting one next, yeah, so next year's vehicle, I believe, is in production, I believe. So it's, yeah, there was a time when we couldn't get any vehicle, but we will be getting a vehicle.
What year is next year? Is next year July, August? Is it last week, next week, this week?
22, 23 or 22, 24?
There's no vehicle in this budget. We're
Okay.
using the money from last year's budget to buy our vehicle
For this year.
for this year.
Because we couldn't get.
Okay, okay.
We said we want it, but we didn't put one in the budget you're looking at now. The money was in last year's budget,
Okay.
if that makes sense. We just couldn't get the car.
Well, we had to pay
They
for
were
it by
on-
June 30th.
No, because it's in a fund that Gloria said, oh, you're.
Oh, that fun.
Lyle, I have a question. It's probably the two of you going to answer for me together. Your MDTs, how often do we have to replace those? How often do they come up to end of life?
So I pretty much put them on the same schedule as all of our other desktop PCs, and they last about 5 years.
Okay.
Is when we really start to see problems.
And
That's
they're-
also the max length of the warranty that the company will give. We do a really high warranty on those computers because they get smacked around in the car or flung or.
They're not mounted in the car, so I mean, they lock into a mount, but they're taking in and out every time the officer comes.
Oh,
out, so
yeah.
They get banged all over the place.
I mean, I thought 5 years was fabulous.
Yeah. We get our money to without them.
I don't do that well on my own laptop.
Would you have software issues with them? I mean, after 5 years, are they no longer can talk to them?
some other computer over here or?
They
Things like that?
can, but you start running into issues with parts on them failing and then you can't get them replaced because there's no longer warranty.
Oh, okay,
Um,
like my laptop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we can do other things with them if we can find a place for them. We have to be careful with that because they've been used for law enforcement, so there's some restrictions there.
My concern with this is I don't like that we reduce the police department's budget. I think you guys are spread too thin, and I think if we could somehow increase that, so you have more resources to hire, to train, to take care of the things, because we can't be safe without the police department. So my concern is we're down $200,000 than what we were. We're down police officers. Why can't we allocate more money to the police department so that we as a city can offer better incentive to get the better police officers here? I mean, can we do that?
So we're not actually down any positions in the budget. We're just unable to fill them, but they're budgeted for stuff.
But if we could increase the budget, we would keep those people that are going to, because you guys work the streets, you get trained, you're doing stuff all the time, and you don't have enough people to cover all that. And so you're spread really thin doing 15 jobs, and why aren't we supporting you more?
Well, so I think if we get the two people, fill the two positions that we're short, we'll be in a good spot.
If we can find good people to do it.
Right.
We can't,
Right, I don't
there's
think.
no way of increasing the budget.
You're saying you want to give raises.
I think the police department should be well funded, and if it's going down by $200,000, I don't like that.
I appreciate your comment. I'm not sure that while money is a factor, I'm not sure money was the reason we lost the people we lost, right? One went to the Department of Justice, which was a financial decision, but it was also a decision where she gets different working conditions, a little bit more prestigious position. And that's kind of where we tend to, I think, have a hard time competing. If someone is being courted by the state police, there are all these different options that they can do, right? They can do everything from go work game enforcement to be on a really well-equipped SWAT team. I mean, it's just, when they see it, they have all these ideas of things that they could possibly do. And we just don't have that to offer. We think that what we have is great, and we try to sell what we do have and why we stay, but not always are you able to convince people of that are young and starting out their careers. So
Well, it'd be nice if we could find some incentive, because you guys are working too hard. And that's my opinion. You're working too hard. I was in the military for years, did rotating shift work. That's hard on your body. And when you do that, and then there's not enough people to cover it, I empathize. And so,
I think we could argue every department suffers from that same malady.
okay, but any other department's not going to
My
provide
question
public.
to you, Sergeant Gilbert, can you do your job based on the budget that you're asking us for?
Yes.
And I appreciate seeing the additional mental assistance as well. That's important to handle.
And to clarify too, I mean, the salary is only going down about $30,000. It's mostly the benefits. Or is the rest of that $200,000 difference for personnel? I right to assume that has to do with PERS or maybe a lower allocation.
So the difference there is because of the code enforcement officer that came out of the police department and is now in community development and building services. And then also part of the building maintenance position has come out of the police department and gone into facilities maintenance.
So it's not that we've taken away $200,000
Correct,
from the budget. Okay, and then as a follow-up question, so in the summary, under recruitment expenses, there's a comment in here that there's a desire to hire 4 to 6 reserves in the next year. Where does that salary come from?
So when I say hire, we're talking about any recruitment that we may do. We're talking about background investigation, the cost of background investigation, the cost of psychological testing, because you have to go through the same hiring process as a full-time person as far as psych and medical. So those costs, plus uniform costs, plus the academy costs, And then we pay, they don't make any money when they're working for us unless they're doing special events, they receive a stipend.
Okay, that's what I was trying to understand.
So there's money in there for anticipating, if we have 6 reserves and Western days or Independence Days, for instance, if they work 3 days in a row, they'll get a stipend for each one of those days, or if they're doing music in the park or movies in the park, helping with some additional security, they can do stipends for that as well.
So they're not getting regular income.
They don't make any money, no. No, and in fact, but we supply all of their equipment.
Everything.
They pay for their training initially, as long as they're with us 6 months post academy graduation, to show that they have dedicated at least for doing all the stuff, right? Then we reimburse them. And it's a cost about $450 a person.
Do you have to pay for their uniform?
We pay for all of that. You have to pay for their boots, everything else we supply.
You have to pay for their boots,
They have to pay for their boots, we supply everything else.
but then once they become a full-fledged officer, they get allowance to pay for the uniforms.
Everything but socks and underwear.
Yeah, we pick up their boots too at that point.
And you pick up the boots.
There you go. All right.
Yeah.
You remind me where the police budget comes from, the general fund dollars primarily,
100%.
100%?
Yeah.
Okay, just speaking back to the previous discussion about the need to stabilize general fund moving forward, and that cuts potentially, if we're talking about cuts, we have to look at the police department just to point that out, and if we're going to increase their budget, we're going to have to find a way to increase revenue through the general fund. So kind of what are the options on the table to do that, just given the reliance on the general fund for money for the department?
Yeah, and I appreciate the support, I truly do, but I think the budget as it is, as proposed, if approved, will be fine for us. We just really have to focus on getting those 2 goals.
Great.
Okay, next is library.
Yeah, so over the last year, our main goals were to increase security, to increase our Spanish language materials, just to be more representative of our community, and then to increase both our virtual programming offerings, or the quality of those, and our in-person hours. As we were coming out of the pandemic, we were able to open up more and get that roof fixed, the library. Roof didn't happen, so spring forward to next year, we have sent over a contract to All American. It's been approved, but that work's not gonna get done this year. Same day their new city manager starts is the day that they're supposed to be climbing on our roof for the first time, but we won't be cutting checks with 3 days, 4 days left in the fiscal year. So looking forward to next year, we have that roof. We want to enhance, for lack of a better word, we have this early learning hub at the library, which is bilingual computers and tablets that kids can come and do these early learning programs on, as well as some take and make grab and go backpacks with DVDs, materials that they can just take and go with those types of things. We want to make a more of a space than just these are your tables, and expand continue to expand that Spanish language collection. So not quite as exciting as the last department, but that's the library. Yeah.
Questions too, though.
I can see that the proposed for repairs is 6,000. Does that encompass the roof repairs?
So the roof repairs are coming from that.
Building
Fund. Thank
repair
you.
and replacement fund, so it's a separate reserve fund.
I wish.
It seems low to me, so like.
Yeah, way.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, where are we with bilingual staff and volunteers in our library? Because I know you've got a big push there to provide a lot of bilingual
So
materials.
we currently have, help me with math, 0.5 plus 4 hours a week of bilingual staff that are there full time. That they will be increasing their hours in the library during summer reading, just because we need them there for that. And then the one individual has been doing Spanish language story times. He was stolen by the school district to be a substitute teacher, a permanent sub over the last year. He's still been providing our virtual story times, but instead of weekly, once he got hired on there, we had to cut that back to twice a month, just because he wasn't able to come in.
But at least you preserve.
Yes, so we still got that.
Patrick, has there been any communications push about the increase in the bilingual materials? I know what you were lacking was adult.
Yeah.
And young adult materials. Has there been any kind of push? Does the community know that that's been increased?
So we have held off on that because we are just, this last week received our last shipment. So a main portion of the adult materials, we participated in the Libros for Oregon program, at the Oregon State Library, or Oregon Library Association, excuse me. And we just got our last shipment of adult books there. So they're not processed and on the shelves yet. And so that is coming. We have to be a part of that program, we had to have an outreach plan in place. And so it just hasn't come yet.
I also wanted to comment that the library and the museum both have fundraising arms in the Friends of or the Heritage Museum Society. And a lot of, especially summer reading and prizes and things are supported by the Friends of the Library.
Absolutely.
And get ready for a fundraiser on that soon because we'll be knocking on your door.
That's a good segue because I wanted to ask Sean something about that. The grant writer Marshall, is he also helping maybe the library and other areas to find grants? Because I know that the Heritage Museum Society wants to do a lot of stuff, but they've had a difficult time figuring out, cracking the grant nut, so to speak. You know, they're getting little onesie twosie small things, but how do they get that big money? How do they really get some stuff going?
Yeah, I'm happy to, I mean, we've been kind of, having him help other folks, other departments, so I'm happy to chat.
Yeah, the short answer is all the grants that have come up that we've gone for, and I believe the museum hasn't looked at any because they've been trying to get doors open and we get to them when we flip the page. But the libraries ones that have been due are you get this every year, we just need your paperwork, so we didn't feel it was worth Marshall's time to check the box that we've checked for the last 20 years.
Quick comment, I just want to acknowledge the council and the ending of late fees and fines, and I know it does have an impact on the budget. But I think that's an important change that was made for equity, for access, for communities for people of color within our communities and all of our low income families. I know the libraries are a hub for a community and having access is key. And I appreciate that, while it does have a budgetary impact, the benefit to everybody, I think is just so much greater. So I just want to acknowledge the council and that change. And so.
Thank you. This isn't a council meeting or a report, but there's the anecdotal. We have gotten lost materials back. So.
Great.
Alrighty.
The next is museum.
I'll just keep going. They had two really big goals last year: hire a new manager and move in and open, and they did those things. Yay. Upcoming, as was mentioned earlier in this very meeting, the main things are to get that roof and the walls repaired, fixed. They're planning on and have already planted the seeds of beginning this robust internship program. So as you go to the museum, and if you haven't, please do, most of the front desk that you see are either volunteers from the society or elsewhere, or interns that are working front desk, as well as right now they've got them scanning and digitizing the collections. That was something that they had wanted to start doing in the last fiscal year, was get their cataloging system up to date. I hope that the terms cataloging system and museum folks, I'm sorry, I'm coming from the library world. But that is the goal, is they're looking at this new system to upgrade their obsolete. And it plays nice. They've made sure that Jason is happy with what they're going for. But really, now that they've got the doors open and they're in the new building, it's getting these partnerships going, starting an outreach program at the schools. That's what they're looking to do this year.
And that new system is the trend. It's what all museums are going towards. Past Perfect was the standard for a very long time.
Yes.
So it's okay. I just want to go back to the question about the roof. Patrick, I went
Yeah.
back, found an email from Tom Bessemer. We paid $425,000 for that building. We budgeted $410,000 for design, construction, and incidentals. So that comes to $835,000. So we're talking about a difference of $23,000. That's all we're over. I think it's pretty good.
Thank you.
Considering it's all estimates.
Yeah, most of that was getting it open.
Yeah.
Right about $15,000 to do this special shelving and all of those kind of get it open kind of things, not really construction related.
A lot of volunteer work went into that, including volunteer construction.
Getting it from one building to another,
Yes. And I know that Public Works put in some time on that, but that's sort of your overarching mission, isn't it, to help things with the city on doing things like that? Say yes.
Just nod your head.
Gerald is a team player.
I would like to know how many hours. If we can find it.
I've got that noted.
Regarding the water damage from the rain, is that gonna be covered by the building repair fund as well? And then I did know that there's a significant increase in salary. Are we hiring next fiscal year? Because it went from 76 to 107 just.
Oh, from actual two, my understanding is that Natasha wasn't there for the full fiscal year. and
Right.
then Our other staff was increased hours.
Right, and
We never have full-time
No.
professional person.
we never
No,
did.
never did.
Till this next fiscal year, well, until we hired Natasha, that was not a full-time position.
And then this is a really trivial line item, but I noticed that the budget for postage was 150 last year and is going up to 1,000, period. All other departments postage has gone down.
She has a really aggressive plan on outreach.
Which is scary.
That was also one that it had to be cut. She was, okay.
Because they're selling memberships, they're sending the materials to people too, so that might be part of the cost. Makes sense. Sean, sir, economic development.
Yeah, so a lot of what we did last year revolved around COVID response, both in terms of supporting businesses, but also trying to position ourselves to come out of COVID. And obviously haven't come out quite as quickly as we wanted to, but I think we're still seeing the benefits. So did a lot of work with the local businesses, trying to get them the skills and resources they need to succeed and continue to grow in this changed environment. Also, with a new hotel in town, with visitors coming to the community, we wanted to really establish a presence for visitors when they say, okay, I'm going to Independence, I'm going to Western Oregon University, I'm going to be in the area, what's there to do? So we created this experienceindyoregon.com website with, just kind of eat and drink, things to do, places to go, really trying to make it a hub for visitors. Also with an Our Independence section, so that really to kind of give a perspective, I guess, behind the curtain, so to speak, about what really makes Independence special, what makes it unique. The idea being that we also want to be a source of pride for people who live here. And then, also develop a separate site focused on the bicycle tourism at the bikeindiaoregon.com. And that's kind of something that was initially just started as a small little thing, has really just grown organically and has become pretty successful in terms of the amount of folks who are coming. It's really just kind of a nice little easy side niche, frankly, for us within the tourism market. And then the other area that I've really been wanting to focus more on is digital skilling. COVID has really shown everybody the importance of digital skills, being able to navigate online, be able to use computers, and then also access careers that are remote. And so we've developed a few different partnerships locally and nationally that are helping us really try to create some programs to help the folks in the community who maybe don't have very many skills, to be able to get the skills to get online, to access some of these remote opportunities, and find their way into some of these digital career paths. So in the idea, I've just actually wrapped up the first cohort of a remote work experience program that was frankly really successful. We're even running a second one in the fall, and I'm really excited to kind of build more off of that. And really, that's, I think, kind of in terms of this year's goals, it really is largely kind of continuing forward with some of the work we've already done with things like this digital skilling. There's a lot of money coming out for workforce development. So how can we leverage that to get, again, local people more skilled to take higher wage jobs, get into better career paths. The Ford Family Foundation, we were part of the inaugural cohort of this GROW program to support entrepreneurship within the community. That program honestly had a bit of a stumbling start this last year, but it's kind of gotten back on track. So we're going to continue that. You know, with, you know, continuing to come out of COVID, with possible recessions coming up, I'm obviously still continuing to pay attention to technical assistance programs, and how we can, you know, bring more resources to local businesses. And then the one that you may not have heard about yet is, you know, with the July 4th, we've launched, piloting a new volunteer management system, like kind of a new way to try to get volunteers, encourage people to sign up and volunteer. And so I'm hoping that that's going to go well. It's an online platform. It's easy to come in and say, you've got a list of volunteer activities. Okay, this is the time, this is the place, this is what I want to do. I'm going to click here and I'm signed up. So we're going to pilot this with the July 4th, and assuming it goes well, I'm hoping to expand that and work with Patrick to integrate the library and the museum and some of these other volunteer opportunities that we have, so that, you know, we keep kind of hearing people are interested in volunteering, but they don't know where to go, they don't know what to do. So this can hopefully become, you know, kind of that one-stop shop.
I saw that and I was really impressed with it, and I'm really old, you know, so anything I can do online like that, and the only problem with it is you have to be able to lift 40 pounds or something, you know, this volunteer program. But no, it was really impressive. I can see how just about anybody could figure it out.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
I
really.
mean, the nice part is, once you're in the system, you can get text message reminders, you can get email reminders. Next year, we'll have a list of people who volunteered last year, so we can automatically just say, click a button, email them and say, hey, you want to volunteer this year? So it should really kind of make life easier and more efficient. for
We should have had that 10 years ago.
Oh, at least,
I
yeah.
think we talked
15
about
years.
something like
Did
that
we?
10 years.
We
When
did,
were
and
in the library.
I'm really glad to see this handled in-house, because
Yeah.
we tried before piggybacking onto United Way and other things, and it's just, they don't know us.
Well, there's probably
You folks are
spreadsheets.
visionary, and now,
Yeah.
and now your aspirations have been
Yeah,
revealed.
it's a great.
Yeah, there's probably spreadsheets floating all around the community with the information we need, but, to your point about expanding this, Sean, I would like to see a further expansion to possibly something along the lines of support your local library, support your local museum, donate, you know, not just volunteer, but donate. And really kind of, energize that process a little bit. And one other thing, you didn't mention it, I'm not sure if it falls in your area, if it doesn't, I apologize, but we gave the hotel the ability to manage this facility.
Yeah.
How's that going?
It's doing very well. They've maxed out the contribution to the city. You see the $5,000 contribution in the tourism events fund. That was kind of the max amount identified in the contract. I don't know offhand how many kind of dates they've used for it, but he did tell me that they've been able to reserve, I think it was $50,000 worth of room nights based on having the ability to also, you know, offer
That
reservations.
translates to lodging taxes for us.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Has there been any negative impact to the city is being able to use this facility?
No, they actually gave some of us rights so we could go in and reserve these rooms ourselves without calling them.
What? What?
Well, not for you.
Oh. Specifically.
Yeah, that's a good news story.
New development.
New development.
Yeah, I got it. So this is Fred Evander's department. He's not here tonight. His goals are to continue to simplify code, make it easy for people to understand. He is going to continue to lead us in our housing needs analysis that is underway right now into next year. And the Central Talmadge Plan and Growth Management Grant, that is a plan to look at different modes of transportation and connectivity around what was called the Talmadge community back in the day. I don't, you probably historically know when, but
Way back in.
quite some time ago. It really is.
Oh, way back in the day.
It's where Rock's, this is the shopping center, kind of that whole area is considered the Talmadge area. And he has some real high goals, honestly, to create connectivity from the new Southwest housing units through trail systems that come all the way up and connect all the way to the rest of town. So,
I think we should put the horse track back in.
and then he's also our key, really the main person that does the trolley work on the trolley project, combined with Lon. Brett spends quite a bit of time working out those details as well.
I am very glad to see the continuation of the housing project on here. And I hear that our new city manager has good chops when it's dealing with economical housing.
Excellent. That has been an interesting study for me. I don't know if you've ever sat through one before, the trails on the things too. And it's looking at all land use is very interesting.
I like the sound of cottage clusters.
Chief, is there a difference between a housing needs analysis and an affordable housing study? Are we doing the same thing?
That's different, because the housing needs analysis is more of an overall, how much land do you have available, how many, like, what's your projected growth, how many houses you need to meet that growth. Whereas,
We could overlay affordable housing study on top
well,
of that.
they're definitely, I mean, they are considering housing prices and affordability, components within this needs analysis. So within the overall, how much housing you need, there's the question of how much of the current housing stock is affordable for people who live in the community, and those types of questions.
Yeah, I asked that at the last meeting, when will we see the results of what we have now, right? The full inventory of what is here now, and that has not yet been built. It's gonna be a while. Yeah, it's a slow process too.
I've got a two-part question. So I can't say that I understand what nuisance abatement is, but also I noticed that it is both a source for $6,000 and an expense for $6,000. Is there a reason?
Nuisance abatement used to be, the resources used to be received in the police department and the expenditure was in the administration.
It's a great deal for us.
Yeah. So we moved them all to community development where they really belong. And what it is, it's high grass, it's code.
Mostly high grass.
Yeah, mostly high grass, but it would be
Would the sidewalks be included in that?
no, properties where there's obvious hoarding going on, things like that that are
So
considered nuisance.
So are
Let's
people
see.
paying fines? And that's where that source, what the source is?
If we have to go out and, we either generally contract out, so for high grass, for instance, we hire a landscaper to go cut that grass. And, they charge us and then we in turn charge the property owner. And so that's where the
That's how it
revenue
handles
comes
out.
on.
Okay.
And that would eventually probably be a lien on the property.
Yes,
If they didn't pay.
Yeah.
And then when it sells, we get the lien and then it goes into the same.
yes. Parks and Recreation, so this is now Patrick's department, where a lot of, in prior years, it was kind of shared with the Works and Sean, and it's never really lived anywhere, so. Now it's.
I think big goal for next year is figure out where it lives. It's still an evolving thing, right? Like, we were talking before, there's some parts that is public works, but is it me, but is it Sean, who's still like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my questions, was to delineate the responsibility clearly, because I don't know what it is. I don't, you tried to explain it to me and I.
All three of us. work in it.
That's, yeah.
And I had a question on that too, is that it shows that one of the goals is to return the summer events, the Independence Days and the summer series to pre-COVID levels. Well, I understood that Independence Days, there's a commission for that. So why does Parks have a goal when there's a commission for Independence Days? And also for the summer series, I understood that to be handled by the city now, not necessarily by Parks. I'm not sure how those goals meld.
Yeah, they kind of overlap.
Yeah,
They really
and I
do.
think this is, again, we're still kind of figuring out
Okay.
what goes where.
So next year, somebody from the Parks Department is gonna run Independence Days, right? So the summer series, is the summer series contracted?
Yeah, summer series is booked, the schedule is out.
I mean, is it contracted out to somebody, John Smith,
So,
somebody?
yes and no. Honestly, Courtney's running much of it. Courtney, the downtown manager. We did contract out the booking of bands, to actually two different people. And so they're sort of booking the bands and sort of managing the bands, from start to finish.
Okay,
But for the most part, in terms of like who's organizing the summer series, it would be us, the city.
So it's not Rick then.
No.
yeah, and does she do vendors and everything?
Yeah,
too?
she's handling the vendors. We have the alcohol concession,
Okay.
which is obviously handling the alcohol side, but we developed a contract with them. And then we have a separate contract with the sound guy. And then we've got the people booking the bands. And so, like I said.
That working real well?
It's working well enough. This, goal for fall is to actually have one person kind of managing the entertainment side of things. And see, we're still kind of, this is kind of an evolution of the half step of last year coming out of COVID and not wanting to get too far down the road. And then by the time we decided that we can kind of go back normal, it was kind of too late to make some of these other decisions. And so we're kind of piecing our way through this year, and then we're going to try to get back to a more established system of doing it.
And this last goal of exploring further development and operational scenarios for independent sports park, that will be based on a feasibility study, correct? Not a separate effort.
And really, a
Not-
lot of
Not
things,
separate.
yeah, a lot of the things that were just talked about are really not in this budget.
Yeah.
There are other places, and you're gonna hear about.
Okay.
Had a great suggestion. You think we can bring?
Well, I was just gonna say, if we can get through public works as quickly and as cleanly as possible, then we can all use the restroom, because I'm about ready to float away.
That is 100% dependent on raise your hands, how many people have questions about public works.
I have one more question on Parks and Rec.
Okay.
So again, just a kind of trivial line item in the larger scheme of things, but there's a fuel increase that has been zero.
That's, it's a new line item because I have a lot of detail in my budget and I
In
want
Parks
to,
and Rec.
yep, I want to track part of Parks and Rec is the operation maintenance of the parks. And there wasn't a fuel line in there. So tracking how much fuel we use in the tractor, how much fuel we use in the mower and weed whackers and all that kind of stuff. I want to be able to track that so we know exactly how many gallons and cost we're using related to parks. Because parks isn't street, sewer, water, or storm funds, which are incentive funds, it's part of the general fund. Yep. Public Works, I've provided a new little section in there, infrastructure snapshot. This isn't complete. This is me going through master plans and totaling up lengths of pipe and everything, but it gives you an idea of how many miles of infrastructure we have to maintain. If you think Public Works, it's the cost, the expense that we have to operate and maintain and replace those pieces of equipment. I think of the water system as a huge industrial plant that covers the entire city. Same thing with the sewer system, same thing with the storm system, same thing with the transportation system. They're large industrial complexes that we maintain. Listed all of the projects in there that we're planning on working on this year. There's a lot going on. There's a lot coming finished. There's a lot coming down the road at us. The main thing that we've done in Public Works is we've reorganized. I've reorganized the staff. It used to be compartmentalized or fiefdomized. One guy did streets, one guy did storms. I've blown that all. There's a main wastewater operator who deals with the treatment plant and collection system. He's the one that's in charge of that entire system. Another one's in charge of water. And another one is in charge of all the other staff who work on those systems and help the other two. And there's one person dedicated to the park system itself. So we restructured based on how a public works organization should be structured as you go into the 15,000, 20,000 population. I'm setting that up now because you are going to grow and we're going to be adding staff. If you don't have that structure in place now and the staff understanding how it functions, we get to 15,000, it's a mess. So, and I've restructured some of the things in the budget and got more detail in there. Sewer, we're tracking how much does it cost to operate and maintain the lift stations? How much does it cost to operate and maintain the wastewater treatment plant versus the sewer system? So I want to track those costs so that if something pops up, it brings my attention to it and I can figure out what I got to fix. That makes sense. Any questions about
When are we gonna get to replacing that building,
the?
Public Works building?
I actually have funds going towards that. I had a note, that we're gonna continue to build funds. I have a plan.
You're building a pot of money?
I'm building a pot of money for the construction of the building. I'm also planning on co-locating it. I'm not gonna spill the beans. I'm gonna co-locate it with something else and try to get more bang out of the buck. And then we'll decide what we're gonna do with the facility over here, because it is zone commercial. There's an opportunity there. So,
Co-locate, what does that mean?
that means I'm trying to locate it with something else integral with Public Works. I'm trying to locate the building with, something related to wastewater or water or storm that we know we're gonna need in the future. Put as many Public Works stuff on one property as we can.
Good idea.
I just had this vision of houseboats on the sewer lagoon.
I love it.
No.
You can put a circle in there.
Anybody wants a tour, let me know. You'll learn more about wastewater in then half an hour.
We've done it before. I keep advocating post-COVID, we hop in a city van and you take us on a tour.
Every legislator.
We have done it, we've done it before.
I know, I
I
learned a lot. I'm ready to go again.
I've done those tour tours.
Taking congressional members through the sewer. lagoons.
Yeah, I remember.
If we don't have any questions on, they're not Parks and Rec right now, you're Public Works right now. Then we could take a 5-minute recess and come back. Because I need.
We're taking one.
Okay, thank you, Jason. So item 9, review of city budget and discussion. We pretty much covered that. If we're all good with passing that. Hearing, seeing, all right. Gonna go ahead and open it up, item 10 for public hearing, state revenue sharing and proposed budget. Do we have anybody on the line? No one on the line, so let's move on down to item 11, actions. We just recessed. So let's move on to the actions needed, page 1.9. I am entertaining motions at this point.
Does it need to be from a city member?
Once,
Anybody?
anybody, yeah.
Therefore, I move to approve the City of Independence budget for fiscal year 2022-2023.
Second,
We have a motion by Counselor Morton, second by Counselor Martin Willis. Discussion?
I just have one issue, chief. The money we're giving to the gate. And, we're giving them $8,000 a year to do warming shelters, but for the first 2 years of the contract, they didn't do warming shelters for us. And my concern is that maybe that money, and we weren't giving the other church in the community who's doing warming shelters any money. So my concern is that maybe we need to be giving this money to the county, because the county is actually the entity that is getting the grant to do warming shelters, and they could certainly use some monies to augment that effort.
And we could ask them to put it into the Independence area, the warming center. We could ask them to use those funds for intent.
Well, what they would probably use those funds for is to pre-position supplies for the warming shelters. So it would be to buy supplies primarily.
If I could suggest, let's let staff take a look, because I'm there, because I think there might be, some, contracts or agreements. And let chief, follow up and see where that is and get back.
I've read the contract, we can terminate at any time, but obviously there's some steps that would have.
Yeah,
to take. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking,
Understand.
rather than trying to, I'm,
And I will say that this year they did a really good job of having the
Yeah.
learning center.
I would agree.
regularly.
I would agree, but again, Foursquare doesn't get any money from us.
Yeah.
And they've been doing it for quite some time. The comments that I did, I thought I sent to the city, had a really good argument about that. I'll try to regurgitate that, send it to you. So you have it.
And if I recall correctly, that issue was brought up last year as well at the budget committee meeting, and I don't know that it's been addressed.
Tom Customer made a concerted effort to get the gate doing what they were supposed to do, or do something for that money. And like you said, they are indeed doing it this year. They have done it, and I have every confidence they'll do it again. But I just think all the efforts that we're trying to work on homelessness right now, the hub for all this is at the county level. Not really at the city, and so I think it would be more beneficial for us to give that money, if we decided to give the money to anybody, give it to the county.
I'll look into it.
Okay,
Like that.
all right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I need another motion.
I'll make it. I move to approve the levying of the city's full tax rate of 4.5897 per 1,000 assessed value.
Second.
Okay, it's been. You seconded, correct? Okay, it has been a motion by Nancy Lodge and seconded by Counselor Pegas. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. One more motion, please. I'll do it. I move to approve that the city impose taxes in the amount of $412,985 for the general obligation bonds.
Second.
Nathan? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now, we're going to go ahead and adjourn the budget committee. And we're going to immediately open the Urban Renewal Agency Amanda, do you want a new call for order? We have everybody still here that was here.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, that's good enough.
so that's roll call, and we will call this one to order at 10:24. Review of agenda, any changes? Nope. Questions submitted?
They're all fine with the.
All right. Review of urban renewal district budget discussion, we've already done that as well, correct? Correct. Public hearings, we still don't have anybody?
No.
All right, let's keep going. Recess convene, no, I need two motions down here on page 1.11 at the bottom.
To approve the Independence Urban Renewal District budget for FY 2022 to 2023.
Second. Second by Nancy. Okay, we have the motion by Counselor Ford. Second by Nancy Lodge. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. One more, please.
I move to approve that the district levy the maximum incremental tax revenue as provided under state law.
Second.
We have a motion by Nathan Christensen, second by Counselor Ford. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Move to adjourn.
If I might, if I may have 30 seconds.
Yeah,
I wanted to
the
say-
mayor needs to speak.
I just want to say thank you to all of you for taking the time and for taking the time to read this. I know that was not number one on anybody's fun plan for the weekend on a sunny day. And so thank you for taking the time to go through, read, and help make our community a better place. Thank you for your service. You make our community a great place.
I just want to say, as mayor, next time, order up a rainy weekend when we can read it.
And maybe these,
Yes, you make.
Thank you.
Okay, maybe next week we can do it on a Monday morning and we have to do it by Friday.